Hello, this is Carmelo and Sasha from Arcanum Ventures back with another 10-minute investor eye test. And today we are looking at Slingshot, a web app that fuels a volume of game vote fund and launches with AI support within the Roblox ecosystem, backed by Dragonfly Capital and Animoca Brands. I believe that is launching today. Sasha, do you know anything about this? I think for a change, we're taking a look at something that's not a blockchain, which is welcomed.
Yeah, hello. I don't know a whole lot about this, but I do know what Roblox is. I guess I'm kind of surprised to hear that there's a company focused on launching games in the Roblox ecosystem, because I know that Roblox is technically a massive game, right? So if you
Yep.
consider an ecosystem, I wonder, are people launching their own like mods or mini games? So I guess it'd be interesting to dive into and understand what Slingshot's doing, but more importantly, why they're launching a token and what the token's going to be doing.
That is an amazing point. I think I saw somewhere that it's called SlingshotDAO. That's another alternative name, maybe on Twitter or something. But
Ah,
so maybe governance has a big role to play in it, and it is interesting. Like, let's see what they end up doing. But instead of launching their own massive sandbox game, you see a lot of really ambitious companies in crypto that think they could raise $1 million or $2 million and then build an MMO. So I think it's interesting to leverage an already existing traditional Web 2 quote unquote ecosystem to monetize and allow people to build their own mini games. It's definitely an interesting narrative, and I'm excited to learn what the token does.
yeah, for sure. And so for our viewers that are unfamiliar with the concept, we take 10 short minutes to dive into a project and decide if this investment opportunity is something that we would be interested in, or if we see too many red flags to say no, thumbs down, this is not something we would be interested in. The goal remains the same: understand what the digital asset is, what does it do, and if it's investable. And yeah, make sure you stick around till the end where we give our verdicts. But Carmelo, if you are ready, we'll go ahead and start the clock and kick it off. All right. 10 short minutes on Slingshot starting right meow. Boom. Okay, Slingshot DAO. We've got crypto rank up here, and it's the main page for the project. And immediately, we're hit with these notable logos for some of these VCs and investors. So they've got, like you said, Dragonfly, Animoca. I see Alphabet in there, tier 4. That's sad. But yeah, these are some big names, right? So maybe there's some validity to this.
Yeah, and like we always say, we have no idea when these investments actually happened. It's hard to get like very transparent and accurate data. So maybe they invested, for all we know, 4 years ago during the last gaming bull cycle. But maybe it was more recent. Like you said, Roblox is a pretty big deal. I'm not so familiar with it, but I know it's one of the biggest games on earth. So that's a whole living, breathing ecosystem that already exists. And maybe Dragonfly and Animoca and Alphabet, they see an opportunity to build in this already existing ecosystem to maybe bring Web3 governance and monetization to something that already exists in the traditional gaming world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing some kind of crazy numbers here already. So, this is, I believe, self-reported data, or user-reported data on CryptoRank, but it claims they've raised over $19 million against a number of undisclosed rounds. That's most likely for equity and token, but they've got some pre-sales for the token. They've got an IDO coming up on, I'm sorry, an IDO that should have ended on Coin Terminal, an IDO on EC. I believe that's ending today. But yeah, check this out, man. We've got a 50 million fully diluted valuation against the token. And keep in mind, this is just the token. So if the token is, not tied to ownership of the company, then we have to evaluate it in a different way. But I'm seeing some wording around here specifically around DAO. So maybe it is like a true DAO. The token might be more valuable than we think.
Yeah, I mean, raising 19 million makes sense, and having a higher valuation makes sense if it's a DAO managed treasury that's going to be investing in building games. Essentially, if you think about it, sort of like a decentralized gaming studio, it's a little bit of an interesting and intriguing concept. I don't know if that's exactly what they're going for, but it makes sense why. I would say the bulk of that fundraise is going towards monetizing and paying people out for creating and enhancing their game ecosystem in their titles. I don't know what to call them because they're mini games, but let's say that they're titles, and maybe they have resources to make these full-fledged games. A lot of the best games of all time have started as mods or mini games and other games like Dota from Warcraft 3 gave way to League of Legends, which is highly popular. So maybe that's what they're going for.
Mm.
It's a new way of building games. Other than that, I think it's a pretty high valuation. So I mean, that's also maybe a giveaway that this was created a while back, because I think you and I have seen that valuations have come down a little bit back to earth, lower FTVs at launch, because it's getting harder and harder to justify some of these high valuations for tokens that are unproven assets in the wild.
That's a very good point. One thing that I realized while you were mentioning that is, it says here that they've potentially raised 24 million in funding,
Oof.
and the fully diluted valuation of 50 million against the token. It's highly unlikely that they raised money only against the token. Large majority of that funding was probably against shareholder equity or corporate equity. And so, if that's the case, that means that there is some investor ownership of the corporate entity, meaning that this company is not established as a true DAO. The token should not give you ownership of the company. So, I'm wondering what the DAO is really governing. So, we should be getting into that, I think, hopefully in the documents. But I'll go ahead and switch over to the website. Boom. This is nice. It looks pretty good.
Very degen.
Yeah. Bet on the
uh,
next $1 billion games. That is kind of degen. Like we've seen things like that before.
yeah, there's this like sort of infatuation with billion. You and I were laughing about onboarding the next billion, bet on the next $1 billion games. Like we're not that creative, yeah. But it kind of falls in line with what I just said. Maybe they're thinking that they'll find some mini game that proves to be a new kind of gaming loop that will transform into a new way of gaming and building a new game that could become the next Fortnite or PUBG or whatever the big things are right now. And the nice thing about stuff like Roblox and Sandbox and these and Minecraft even is they're very moddable. It's easy to create like mini games. Let your imagination run wild, and then you can transform this into another $1 billion game. So it does make sense. It's a nice narrative for gaming. Anybody that's investing or interested in gaming can get behind that, I think.
I mean, it's a really interesting concept considering that Roblox is an open ecosystem, I guess, for modders. The thing that I'm curious about is, this is completely and entirely centered on Roblox, and you can see here, like visually, they're saying that there are a number of different games, real games that are being published, played by millions of real players on Roblox, and so they're referring to these different game modes or user created mods as individual games, but like visually they all look very similar. It's just built in the Roblox ecosystem or digital metaverse, right? And you can
Yep.
even see like there's the same character across the board. So is it fair to call all of these different games, and that can that merit a lot of capital coming on board from some of these developers? I don't know. It seems more of like an indie effort that doesn't really that doesn't really call for like raising additional funding or like a full game launch. I do see like a Roblox version of Goku here, which is pretty funny though.
Yeah, and like I said, this might be the new way to launch games. We see traditional gaming giants are dying because they put all their assets and money into AAA games that fall apart. And maybe this is a more organic. It's like price discovery, but it's attention discovery. What do people connect with before we put a bunch of money into it? Let's see what people are already making out of their own creativity on sandboxes like Roblox, and then we'll maybe this is like the way we're like, yeah, it doesn't have to rest and finalize here. Like these are all Roblox graphics, but maybe you're like, oh, they're onto something here. We can make this like real like GTA style graphics or anything. You can make your own visualization, but you're taking like the gaming loop basically. It's like an experimental sandbox where you can discover new concepts and game loops, which I think is actually really cool. The more I think about it, maybe this is the future of like building games.
I like the idea of monetizing individual developers' efforts as far as like creating new game modes. There are massive modding ecosystems out there for like a number of different games that we talked about, Counter Strike or CSGO, Fortnite. A lot of these different ecosystems have like mod communities built around them. And so monetizing those efforts are great. You and I know about like the what is it, like the independent modding community's efforts to create like a new Fallout.
Yeah.
That was really cool, and but like unfortunately there were aspects of it that were shut down. So
Mm.
like this being sanctioned by Roblox can be very important. I
Yeah.
don't know if it is, but it did mention Roblox is one of the partners or backers here. It actually just mentioned um, their logo. So we don't like 100% know if this is something sanctioned or allowed by Roblox, especially considering it's a DAO, right? So decision making and monetary policies specifically around this is out of Roblox's hands unless they are on board as investors and like DAO decision makers as well. But
Yep.
I didn't think that Roblox is that deep into the world of Web3. So it's just surprising to see.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point, and that's probably the first thing I would do if I were doing actual due diligence on this. When talking to the team or looking into the team's background, seeing if that partnership's very real or if it's just they know about us and it's okay that we're doing this, but we haven't made a formalized partnership. It shouldn't matter because it's a DAO, it's decentralized. Maybe you don't really need their blessing to do what you're doing because you're not really breaking any rules or anything. You're just uh, if anything, maybe Roblox is happy about this because it's getting more people to test and experiment and play the game. So
Hmm.
maybe they're happy about this. Even if they don't know about it, they would be happy about it.
Yeah, and one thing to note, like this, for some reason, this counter doesn't stop. It just keeps looping. But I think
Yeah,
it limits around like 700 something games shipped and like $17 million in revenue generated, or more, I guess now
thousand.
because we're seeing it. Yeah, yeah, 20 something million. But you know how much of that revenue is being captured by Roblox? If they're simply just allowing a community of modders or developers that's governed by some token based DAO to expand their offering on the Roblox ecosystem and
Yep.
they're collecting revenue from it, then like it's a pretty good idea, right? That's great BD.
Yeah, and like obviously we got to look at the token and see what it does. But like in a perfect world, my dream wish list for this, if I were to invest, would be seeing a nice revenue split between Roblox itself, the DAO treasury, and then the people that are creating the games, because all those people need to be incentivized and rewarded for contributing, right?
Yeah, 100%, right? This is a great creator economy, which means that incentive structure should fit directly into it. And at that point, it's becoming more of like a value distribution chain
Yep.
for like monetizing developer efforts, like a revenue share without actually being a revenue share. So that should be like one of the principal use cases for the token. We are up with our 10 minutes and we didn't even get into the token. We were just talking about concepts and philosophies, which is fun and cool. But I'm
Hey,
wondering, should we
yeah,
take
yeah,
another
yeah,
minute?
yeah. Let's.
So,
We were both rambling too much, so let's count this. This isn't cheating.
all right. So we've got token distribution, and they've got like what looks to be something that's quite standard: a large portion going to community,
Yep.
a sizable portion going to investors, some advisors, some founders, and contributing visionaries. I guess that's a wild thing to call it, but the more importantly, here's the utility that we need to take a look at, right?
Well, real quick,
So
one interesting thing too. If you go back to that pie chart, uh, one thing you mentioned before we even started was how much money they raised, right? Like 24 million. And you said it might be against equity too, because look at that blue baby blue investor tranche, 18.9% of the token are going to investors for that big of a raise. I don't think that's possible without some other equity raise because otherwise that's like a huge valuation. That's not a lot of tokens going out to external parties.
yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, if 24 million raised against corporate assets, if it was only the token at a 50 million valuation, they would be selling more than 50% of their supply. They
Yeah,
might be selling even closer to 75% if you factor in pre-sale discounts. So if it was all against the token, then the FDB of the supply would be closer to let's say 150 million, which we're not seeing here. So there must be some equity sold.
yeah, and I think I saw some airdrops up above too. So who knows? Like when you see a massive, this is a good lesson for everybody. If you see a massive tranche community, more than 50% of the total token supply, it's very vague and unclear what community actually means. It could be any number of things. It can be other investors for public sale. It could be airdrop rewards. So, like, you and I like to label things a little bit more precisely, just to give an indicator to potential investors or buyers or holders that this is what this more or less will be used for. Like, community 52%. We're seeing some like weird discrepancies here, and it might totally be okay, but definitely things that I would ask the team if I were able to have a call with them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, there's not a lot of visibility behind this, and for good reason. You
Yep.
don't. A lot of these teams don't want to give insights into like what their marketing or BD strategies look like. But if you're buying a token, there should be a clear idea around like the use case behind it, especially for a DAO. So what I'm seeing here, we've got some of the key utilities. You can lock the Sling token in return for power and influence the next games to be developed and co-own an ever-growing library of published games on Roblox. So maybe there's some decision making around deploying treasury funds to fund new game modes or mods being built
Yep.
on Roblox from this community. You can vote in those different types of proposals, and then you can earn the token. Um,
For
so
voting.
you can yeah, you can really? Is that it? Oh,
Earn Sling
earning
for
rewards
voting.
from voting. That's
Yeah,
not
which
a
I
good idea. Why would you pay people to vote?
not to mention that, like, if you think about it, you're locking up your tokens to vote, so you're not there's no sink into the economy. You're just locking them up. We don't know how long you have to lock them up for to vote, and then you're getting rewards emitted back into the voters' hands just for participating. So they might not even care about what they're voting on. They just want to earn, which is like a significant flaw for governance system, I think.
Yeah, there are some reasons why you might want to pay people to vote in a governance protocol, and that might be for like some very specific governance proposals or proceedings where you can anticipate a very low voter turnout. So you want to incentivize some from the right people, but it's important to limit access in those cases, right? And so
Yep.
you're absolutely right about like that inflation-heavy system. We've got voting rewards going out. We've got rewards for a number of things going out, but I don't think anywhere in this, this, let's say, token utility section, that we're seeing anything to give us an idea of how tokens or value are being recovered.
Yep.
So, from an investment perspective, the only value is I want to take part in decision making within this Roblox building community. I
Mhm.
don't think that there can be any expectation of value accrual anywhere because I just don't see that in the utility side.
I agree 100%. And one thing that I will say, though, if you look on the left under the Sling token, it says Slingshot L3, which something we haven't seen mentioned up until this point. So, Arbitrum Orbit Layer 3 chain, which we've had some experience helping to build and work on. So that's interesting too. Like, why they would need an entire L3 for fast and cost-effective transactions with good security guarantees, ultimately rolling up on the Ethereum mainnet layer one. So they're anticipating having enough games where it warrants having their own layer three on top of Arbitrum, their own Orbit chain. We haven't seen any mention of gas tokens. Maybe there is no gas token, but that does make it a little bit more interesting from an investment standpoint. But I still don't think I'm seeing enough to warrant serious consideration into investing in the Slingshot token itself.
Yeah, it's such a good point, right? It does bring a little bit more interest on the Web3 side, but at the same time, it brings in way more complexity because
Yeah.
now this company is talking about I'm going to integrate blockchain infrastructure into a lot of different gaming mods, or like I don't really want to call them games because Roblox is the game, and these are like different mini games that are being built in Roblox. But it's kind of like forcing the hand of Roblox to get into Web3. And if Roblox is not sanctioning or permitting this to happen, then there can be some conflict in the future where they shut out this entire builder community, and that's a huge risk.
Or
So,
steal it for themselves
or
too.
Absolutely. And so, like, Roblox is a publicly owned company, and they've got to adhere to very strict regulations when it comes to their product and their assets and their user base. And so, like, this is kind of pushing Roblox into getting into Web3. If all these different slingshot community driven games are going to have like blockchain based transactions and this and that, that can cause some frictions between the parent company. So it is very complex.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to ramble on too much, but I think we can go to our verdicts. I think you and I both have enough of an understanding of what we've just looked at to make at least a base level verdict. So if you want to go ahead and give your take first, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do, I want to remind everybody, make sure you tap that like button and throw us a follow if you're enjoying this content. We got more fun eye tests coming. We got some fun interviews coming from your boys at Arcanum. And so my verdict is going to be, surprising enough, one thumb down. I think that this is super cool. I think that there's a lot of power in building a development community behind a massive gaming ecosystem like this. Roblox is a huge brand name. Many people within the world of gaming know it. It's a massive publicly traded company. I don't know what the market capitalization is, but it's huge. I know that. And the company itself develops very healthy revenue. And so creating, a company that is going to empower this builder ecosystem is great. And you could see some of the numbers they had on their website. I don't know if it's true that they've already developed over $20 million worth of revenue, but it's a pretty impressive number. The thing that worries me is that I don't see any value accrual in this token as an investment vehicle. And then as far as the DAO goes, like just simple decision making around developing games, that's cool. But again, there's no clarity on how value from the launch and operation and revenue of those games is going back to the token holders or the decision makers or the investors that are powering this. So from an investment perspective, doesn't look so great. And then always that sort of partnership risk that comes with a third party development community that's pushing the drive towards innovative technology in Web3 and blockchain, but still risky technology when it comes to compliance and regulation. So for a publicly traded company like Roblox, that's a little bit more difficult. And there's like maybe a non 0% chance that Roblox can shut this entire ecosystem out if there's even a little bit of controversy around some tokens or some blockchain aspects of it. So for me, that's one thumb down. I'm gonna stay away.
Interesting. I think this is yeah. I mean, I went back and forth to saying thumb up, thumb down. I think I'm going to give it a thumb up, and that's surprising too. But uh,
Wow.
I will preface this by saying that the token itself, I'll chalk it up to lack of information. Maybe they just did a poor job of explaining what the token will do. I don't love what I see, and here's an interesting one. Like this is an example of something I would love to build a token economy for. So if Slingshot team wants to work with some of the best token economy builders in the space, give us a shout. But I really love the idea. You and I love gaming, and we love the ethos behind this. Seems like it aligns with what we envision. Like we want to see a new, better paradigm for building games, and I think they're onto something here. This is something that we've actually built into some of the companies we've worked with to build economies for incentivization of user generated content or created content, whether that's a gaming mode or assets in the game or whatever, cosmetic skins. It doesn't matter, but making something more collaborative with gamers so that they're not just gamers anymore. They're co-builders. So I think there's a lot of people out there that want to build games, and we're removing more barriers of access and making it a little bit easier for people to do that, which I think is great. And you're absolutely right. Like Roblox is like what, like a 37 or 38 billion dollar company right now, which is massive for Roblox. And let's call it the Roblox paradox. Like maybe you fly too close to the sun, you get burned. Like it's great for a Web3 company to work with a $38 billion company. Like that's amazing. But you're right. Like you also run the risk of them saying, we don't need you. We can do this ourselves. We're going to build our own token. We're going to build our own digital assets. We're going to create our own program to incentivize people to build games and share the revenue with them because people know us and they trust us. We're compliant. We're a big company. So I think that is a major risk and something I would absolutely ask the team. And yeah, I would want to know more about this token because you could have the best idea in the world, and if the value doesn't accrue back to the people that are investing, like let's call it what it is. This is an investment into a DAO. You want to be a member of a DAO with power. Why would you vote? What is the incentives? Are you voting on your friend's game? You gonna get kickbacks from your friends that are building games in here? Like I would need to know more about the governance system. I think it needs to be better thought out
Yeah.
than just staking tokens. We saw no sinks here, just emission of token rewards. So that I would give a thumbs down to, but I would absolutely love to learn more about this because I think they're onto something. So in a roundabout way, thumbs up, but with a huge contingency there. You guys need some help on the token economy side, let's say.
Y'all need Jesus.
So yeah, I guess that's one of our more interesting ones, though. I don't think we've ever had a thumbs up, thumbs down, but maybe I'm wrong. We have to go back and watch some of our old videos. But thank you for joining us for another 10-minute investor eye test. Today we looked at Slingshot. Best of luck, regardless, Slingshot. I'm going to be watching closely to see how things are going, and yeah, see you next week, everybody.
Ciao, y'all.